So welcome to the Pittsburgh Real Estate Panel. Today we're talking with our Pittsburgh East representative, Jay Villella. Jay was one of the first agents in the area to embrace Selling Later's mission and was also one of the first agents to contribute an article to our resource blog. So Jay, thanks for joining me today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Sure. So I want to start off this Pittsburgh session. I even brought my mug. I'll have to get new ones every time I go to a different city. So since we're focusing on Pittsburgh, I wanted to start off with a fun question. So what is your favorite or most lovable, quirkiest thing about Pittsburgh that you won't see or hear in other cities? So like as an example, I was born in Mount Lebanon and I lived there until I was 5. My mother's whole family lived in Bridgeville, Mount Lebanon, that area. And at 5, we moved to the North Hills and nobody would come to visit us because it was too far. I am now 38. And I still get together with a lot of friends that were in my sorority in college. And it's people that live in the North, people that live in the South, and whoever, like last year we did it in the North and everyone in the South complained because it was too far. And it's really 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but it's like the whole other end of the world when you go North or South. So that would be mine. So what is yours?
Yeah, well, I am not a Pittsburgh native. I grew up in Erie, which is very flat. And then I lived in New York State, and then I lived in Connecticut, and all the places I lived have always been flat or like coastal. And one thing I noticed right away when I moved here was that people are totally fine with extremely steep hills, like both driving up and down them or parking on them. Like no one has a second thought about just parking basically like at this angle,
Right.
Park and walk away like it's not a big deal. Or entering a building on the ground floor, but it's actually like the 4th floor when you get to the other side of the building, and like taking an elevator down to the ground floor. Like it's
right.
Yeah, and people here just think that's totally fine and normal, but it's pretty unique, I would say.
Right. And especially in the wintertime, driving, it's like no big deal. I mean, I still panic a little bit on certain hills, but some people, they just fly right through. Like it doesn't matter. I guess it depends on how much you're used to it. I don't know if I'll ever get there yet. But okay, so you told us a little about where you grew up. So tell us a little more outside of real estate about yourself.
Well, one thing that's a little bit unusual about me is I'm actually a classical musician. So
how did I not know that?
Like I played Carnegie Hall in New York, and I played at the Aspen Festival in Colorado, and I've just played all kinds of music for many years since I was a kid.
Oh, that's so cool. What did you play?
Trumpet.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now you did that. So you did that growing up in Erie? Have you always been like a musician?
Yeah, I started playing when I was around 11. So, I had played baseball, and there was a while there where I was playing baseball, and I started to get into music, and I quit baseball. And so it's kind of unusual. I was like 13, 14 years old, alone in my room, practicing the trumpet for like 2 or 3 hours a day.
Right. I bet your parents loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it my son next year, they get to pick an instrument to try in school. And I'm like, oh, like I'll be happy with whatever you pick, but like, please don't have it be something really loud, especially if we're still all at home for some reason. But whatever he wants to do, but that crosses my mind sometimes. Okay. So then when did you move to Pittsburgh?
2013. Growing up in Erie, Pittsburgh is kind of like one of the closer cities along with Cleveland. And we both liked Pittsburgh. When we came down here to visit, we just liked the vibe. I mean, it's such a vibrant city, downtown and in Oakland and in the city. It's just like people everywhere. But it's not crazy like New York City where there's too many people.
Right.
It's a great balance. It's a very vibrant place with a lot of innovation, but it's not a pressure cooker the same way as some of the bigger places are.
Right. And so where do you live now in Pittsburgh?
We live in Swisshelm Park. So, Squirrel Hill is right by Frick Park. Squirrel Hill is between Frick Park and Shenley Park. Swisshelm Park is like south of Frick Park. It's a little neighborhood.
Okay. And so in an effort to support small businesses, so in where you live, your favorite place to eat, shop, or favorite place you'd like to go in Pittsburgh when we can all do that again someday?
Yeah, definitely. So many different places. In my immediate neighborhood, I have to give a shout out to Pup in the Park. I love D's six packs and dogs. It has like the biggest beer selection of anywhere in the entire area. They have like a huge refrigerated area where you can buy anything, like any
cool.
kind of homebrew stuff. It's really cool. And they have great hot dogs. Yeah. On Murray Avenue in Squirrel Hill, you have like everything. There's a great Indian restaurant there called Coriander. Love that place. And I have to give a shout out to Thai Terrace in Edgewood. I love their Thai food. When we first moved here, one of our favorite things to do was to play tennis on the clay tennis courts in Frick Park, which are free in public.
Okay.
Super fun. They have like a club there, and they give lessons, and they have groups and classes for people, and it's a great time.
Cool. I feel like I need to write this down. I'm like stuck in the northern suburbs. I don't get to go out as much, especially with two kids. You don't get to go anywhere really unless you get a babysitter. Okay, so tell me about the Pittsburgh East housing market right now.
Okay.
How crazy is it?
It's varied. So there are so many different market segments. There's multifamily homes, there are condos, there are single family homes from, I would say the lower end. Well, okay, so the prices vary widely. Like you can get a house still in the city of Pittsburgh for like $50,000, which is unheard of in a major city.
Right.
But it goes all the way up to like $2 million. So there's everything in between there of every possible combination. But in terms of what the market's doing, so prices have shot way up all across, with the exception right now, maybe Lawrenceville, which has cooled off like a little bit.
Right. Which at some point it needed to, right? I think that was like the never-ending, growing, trendy segment in Pittsburgh.
So it's at the end of November. This time of year, I typically do nothing, which I enjoy, like it's my time off. But nope, I put up a listing yesterday at 8 a.m. By noon, I had 4 offers.
Oh, wow.
I'm talking cash above the list price, no inspections.
No inspections. I still don't understand how people do that. I mean, I get it. You want to be competitive, but that just seems like a risk, unless you know what to look for, but I mean, I guess if you have to compete, that's what people do. It just seems bold.
I would never encourage someone to make a no inspection offer, but I'm not, this time I'm the seller's agent.
Right. So you're good. It's fine. Okay. So how did you get into real estate?
When we moved here, Elise had something to do. That's my wife's name.
Mm-hmm.
She was studying math. And so I was teaching, and I was playing music jobs, but I had a lot more time than money. So I started looking for other jobs on Craigslist, and I clicked on this like thing that was a personality test. I mean, I was like bored. So I filled this thing out to get my results. But then the next day, a real estate brokerage called me, and they said, "Hey, your psychological profile is exactly what we want. It matches what our successful agents are like. So will you come in? We'll pay for your classes. We'll pay for your licensing exam, and we'll train you all for free." Oh. And I was like, I have nothing to lose. So I'll just do it.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. And they trained me really well. And this whole time I've told myself, if I don't like this, I can just stop and just do something else. But I keep doing it because I enjoy it, and moderately successful. So
and you're good at it, and you're honest, and that's appreciated in this realm of the industry. Okay, so how many years have you been doing it now?
Almost 7.
Almost 7. I didn't realize it was that many. I was thinking 5 for some reason. And that's okay. And then, is there an area that you do the most of, like from an essential like type of home, multifamily, single family, new construction? Do you prefer representing buyers over sellers?
So it fluctuates depending on the market and depending on who I'm working with at the time, but definitely mostly single families and condos, and mostly in the city. But I have sold stuff as far north as Cranberry and as far south as Peters Township. Okay. So these are, for anybody watching, these are like in adjacent counties, north and south.
Right. Yeah, I guess I should have, like, we talk like I know where it is. I don't go there because it's in the south and I live in the north, but I know where it is. Right. Okay, and the one thing that I wanted to touch upon specifically is your passion for consumer rights and transparency. It's actually how we ended up connecting I guess almost a year, months, years ago. I'm not really sure the exact time, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
And you are one of the very, very, very few agents that publicly acknowledges and talks about buyer rebates.
Yeah.
It's something you can do in PA, but unless you as the consumer bring it up, it's probably never going to be in your conversation. So can you explain like what a rebate is and why a lot of agents won't talk about it?
When you hire a buyer agent, how does that agent get paid?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the buyer agent that's working for you, that's showing you homes, they get a commission that comes ultimately from the seller.
Right.
It's the seller that's paying your buyer's agent. Okay. And that can be, it's usually a percentage commission and it varies. What that agent can do, what your buyer can do is actually take some of that money and give it to you at the closing. And they can do this a couple different ways. They can pay some of your closing costs, or you can actually get a check at closing, and it doesn't come from your agent directly. It comes from the closing company. There are companies in Pennsylvania that do rebates, and they advertise that publicly, and the whole company does that. But individual realtors at different other companies are permitted to do that. It's just that we can't publicly advertise that, at least as far as I understand the law.
Right. Right.
So yeah, if you come and work with me and we get you set up on my rebate program, I rebate up to 20% of my commission at the closing to help pay for your closing costs.
Right. And then, you know how I really enjoy referral platforms. How does that affect a consumer's chance of getting a rebate?
There are websites that are like bestagentInwherever.com. Okay. You click on that, they send you somebody. Actually, what they do is they sell your contact information to an agent. And what that agent has to do is give part of their commission to that company. Now, that company might give you a tiny slice of that as well. Like they might say, if you work with our agents, we'll give you $500 or something like that. But they're keeping the vast majority of that. And so basically, by finding your agent on one of these platforms, you're paying your agent a lot less and you're not really benefiting from it necessarily.
Right, right. And they don't, and the problem is, so say you don't realize that's happening and you sign on with the agent, like that money is gone already. So, when you go to have that conversation about can I talk to you about rebates? Like they've already contributed 30% of what they're earning to someone else. Sometimes it's more than that, right? It can vary from 20 to 40 to, I don't know, 50. I would hope people wouldn't participate in that, but I can tell by your face, there might be a chance. So, I think that's a key when you talk about rebates is understanding, how you found your agent. And so what is the safest way to avoid that? Is it contacting them via social page, their personal website?
Yeah, I always recommend to people to Google real estate agents in the area. If you're looking for a buyer's agent, quiz your family and friends. Obviously, everyone says that. Reach out to coworkers who have recently bought homes and were happy with their agent. You can go on different review sites like Yelp or Angie's List or Zillow, and you can look at reviews on there. A lot of people think that reviews can be faked, and of course they can, but most of the sites are pretty strict about that.
Can you get rid of negative ones? Is that possible?
I don't think so. If there is a way, they didn't tell me about it.
Or maybe you just don't have any, and maybe you're that great, right? You don't have to worry about it.
I don't have any negative reviews. I have some not perfect ones though, and
right.
I'm happy when my customers are honest with me about things that I haven't done perfectly. But if there's a way to get rid of negative reviews, I don't know what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if there were.
Right. Well, I think it's hard too, because in addition to you lending your expertise, there's also that personality fit to it. If I'm a major introvert and my agent is this extrovert that's constantly talking to me and texting me and messaging me, and that makes me uncomfortable, there's part of the problem there, and it has nothing to do with service. It just might be, are you a match personally,
Right. Sure.
All right. So what do you think is the biggest misconception that consumers have about agents?
All get paid 6% of the
yeah.
sale.
Yeah. Right. Right. or that even if you take 3%, you don't get to keep all that either.
No, in almost every case, not. So,
Right.
but that doesn't mean though that agents don't sometimes make a lot of money. It is true. There, especially the top 20% of agents by volume are significantly paid well, I would say. So,
Right.
but on the other end of the spectrum, there are an awful lot of people that are making less than $10,000 per year total.
Wow. Is that usually like first year, second year, or?
Yes. So the industry has a tremendously high turnover. And it's because it's so difficult to generate new business because of all these different dynamics in the industry that make it difficult for consumers to connect with agents who are really competent and really have their best interests at heart. So because of that, yeah, that's the biggest misconception, is that every single agent is just rolling in it and just
Right.
like light cigars with $100 bills and stuff like that.
Right. Driving around in the Lamborghini and taking pictures. That's what some of them do take. I don't even know if it's theirs, but some do take pictures and put it on social. I still question if it's theirs, but I won't, to each their own. Okay, so what is the most important question to ask when interviewing an agent?
I would find out the agent's level of experience.
Okay.
So just ask, how many transactions have you done in these neighborhoods that I'm interested in? If you're talking to a buyer's agent. Now, we're all new at some point, so experience isn't necessarily everything. And if they don't have a lot of experience, ask them, what kind of training do you have? What kind of education do you have? And ask them, like, what can you bring to the table to help me in my home search?
Right. Great. And then I know you've been very straightforward about changes you'd like to see in the industry, but if you were speaking to consumers, what's one thing that you feel like you're proactively either working towards or would like to see change in the industry? I know you've got a list, but if you had to narrow it down to one, maybe two, what would it be?
I would really like to see the end of dual agency.
Okay. And for those that don't understand what that is, because there's almost like two understandings of that, correct? Like if you are representing the buyer and the seller, and then also if your agent works at the same office as the person that's buying it, correct?
Oh,
Is there,
right.
There's two ways to look at it? Okay.
So long ago, there used to only be seller agents. So agents would only represent the seller's interest. And the legal principle that governed real estate transactions was caveat emptor. In other words, if you buy a leaky, broken, messed up house for too much money, that's on you.
Right.
Like, good luck. So I think we can agree that that's not like a good situation for consumers.
Right.
So in the 70s, buyer agency. So this idea that an agent would represent you as a buyer and not the seller necessarily, that came about. But the problem is, in Pennsylvania, you're allowed to be the seller agent and the buyer agent at the same time for the same property, which isn't functionally better at all than the original situation.
Right.
And so I'd like to see that be made illegal, like it is in law. For instance, you cannot have a divorce attorney that's like the same attorney for your ex at the same time.
Right.
So I'd like to see that. And as a result of that, I'd like to see people hire their own buyer agents and pay them in a different structure. Maybe not a percentage commission, but like either hourly or weekly fee of some kind, or some kind of flat fee, which I think would take away the incentive from. Sometimes your buyer agent has some bad incentives because of the way the pay is structured. I'd like to see that change. As far as seller agents go, I think a percentage commission actually makes sense for them given their incentives. But yeah,
right.
Those are the two big ones.
Right. It's funny when you talk about how buyer agents are paid. I didn't know this until I didn't know a lot of this stuff until we started building Selling Later, but that some buyer agents get like a bonus incentive if they sell a home like within a certain time period, or there's like a certain flat set amount of money if they sell. I don't know how it's structured by amount or time, and that's not always brought up to consumers. I don't know how you would know, but you'd hope that there's some transparency in that conversation. But I feel like that would be good to know as a consumer. Like, do you like this home for me? Or is it because you get like an extra $2,000 when I close on the home?
So great point to bring up. Just real quick,
Yeah.
For context, everyone listening, there was a Department of Justice suit against the National Association of Realtors detailing this specific thing, which is that buyers don't always know what the commission or other incentives that are being offered are on whatever house they're looking at. So in Pennsylvania, we already do this. Like if you ask your agent, what's the commission on this house, they have to tell you that. They're not allowed to not tell you. And if there's other incentives or whatever, they have to tell you that too. So that's already the law here in Pennsylvania.
Right. Do you think people ask, I think that sometimes it's hard when you talk about money or, like some people are really uncomfortable with that. So it's, what's proper way, a comfortable way to say, how much money are you making off of this sale? Like, is there an appropriate professional way to ask that question? Or should you just be bold and just ask it? Just go for it.
If you feel comfortable, go for it. But I think it's fine and good to know like how much your person that is supposed to represent your interest is being paid.
Right.
So what I would do is, so whenever I meet a new client, I always have a meeting with them and I explain all of this stuff. And I'm like, this is what I get paid on this and that. And if something is unusual, like if I'm showing them a listing that's unusual, I'll volunteer that information. Like, hey, they're going to pay an extra $1,000 to me if you make an offer by X date.
Right.
So what you should do when you meet your agent, when you first meet them, say, hey, I just want to understand, what are your policies about this and that? Like, what do you, like, how does your commission structure work? What commissions do you often see? And that's when you first meet them. And agents, for the most part, are comfortable speaking about money because that's like what we do all day.
Right.
So they're not going to be offended. So don't worry about offending them.
Right. And if they don't want to answer you, you should probably find someone else, correct? Right.
I would question why they don't want to answer. Yeah.
Right. Right. Awesome. So is there anything else that we missed that you think people want to know, especially about like Pittsburgh East or anything consumers should know that's weighing on your mind? I know you write some great articles. So I need to share more of them because I feel like I kind of get on information overload, which is part of the reason why we started this panel is just there's a lot of information out there and you're not really sure who wrote it. Even for our website, a lot of times we ask an expert to write it because we don't want to share improper information. And some of the people have never sold a home that are writing this stuff, and you have to think, like, what is this experience based off of? So, I'm excited. I hope that people that have questions can ask you, and the rules about not selling to them, not selling their information. So, I'm excited. We'll see how it all pans out. Can you think of anything else you want to add?
I just think it's important for consumers to trust their instincts. So if you're around a real estate professional and you feel uneasy and you feel like you don't trust them, you need to get away. You need to get out of that situation.
Right.
And trust is built by honesty and transparency, and putting all of our motives on the table.
Right.
And fortunately, in our industry, agents have a refrain that they say to each other all the time. They say, "Buyers are liars."
Oh, that's nice. Isn't that kind?
And I don't want to have that kind of a relationship with any of my clients, and I don't want them to think of me like that. So I think building trust and making sure that people that you're getting information from are people that you trust is essential.
Right. Right. And communicating if something isn't working. Is there a proper way to say, hey, this isn't working, I want to use someone else? Especially if you've signed an agreement, what do you do?
That's complicated, but
okay. Is this a separate conversation perhaps? Maybe I need to edit this question out for another time.
No, it's okay. If you have signed a buyer agency representation agreement with an agent, there's a couple different kinds of them. They can have all different things in them, okay? And they have language in there that says what happens if you don't want to work with them anymore. But don't be scared. If you really just don't want to work with this agent, you just call them and say, hey, listen, this isn't working out for me. I think I'm going to go into a different direction. You don't have to say, I'm going to use another agent to buy a house. You could just say, right. I'm done with this. I'd like to cancel my contract. Thanks for your help, but see you later.
Right.
That's all you have to do. And if they refuse, you can go over their head to their managing broker, and that's very easy, and they're not going to fight you.
Right. Good to know. Anything else you can think of?
No, that's it. Thanks for speaking with me.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and we'll include your information and everything on the panel if anyone has just a general question about Pittsburgh East, the market in general, rebates, because I think you're one of the people on the panel that explains it really well and how it works. And thank you. This will be great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.